Take 3, exercise 1.2. Show, using diagrams, and discuss how a price-taking firm responds to the introduction of taxes or command and control in the presence of uncertainty, affecting the benefit or the damage function. So it's a bit unclear really what the setup is in this question. But I'm going to take the freedom and set it up in terms of abatement, and then on this axis we've got prices, dollars per ton. If we draw a curve like this, what's this? It's sloping down, so we could assume that this must be the marginal benefits of abatement. The more we abate, the lower our marginal benefits. And it's very steep, which is telling us that, look, it's hugely important to get rid of the first bits of pollution, the highest amount of pollution. Then once we've already got rid of some, the marginal benefits of getting rid of more, decline steeply. Okay, that's what's going on there. And then, if I draw a curve like that, this must be the costs to the firm of abating, okay, which I've drawn as being relatively flat. Okay, so what level would a regulator who had all the information choose for a tax? This level. And if a regulator was telling the firm, you must abate a certain amount of emissions, what amount would the regulator tell the firm to abate? It would clearly be this amount, A star, let's say. Okay, but what if the regulator actually isn't too sure about the situation, either with respect to benefits or costs? So let's assume that the regulator isn't too sure about the benefits, but maybe the benefit curve is really like this, or the marginal benefit of abatement, which is like damages. It's still very steep, but it's shifted to the left. Then what is going to happen if the regulator imposes this tax according to what it thinks the true benefits are? So then the firm is going to abate to this level, responding to the tax and given its cost curve. And that's not going to be socially optimal, is it? The social optimum would have been here. So we've got deadweight losses, haven't we? What are the losses? Well, the firm is taking on costs here which are in excess of the benefits on the margin, and we get those deadweight losses. What if you'd applied an abatement standard and said to the firm, look, you have to abate A star, the losses would be exactly the same. Okay. So it turns out that uncertainty about the marginal benefits of abatement, if you like, damage costs from emissions, if we turn it round and think in terms of emissions instead of abatement, uncertainty about that makes no difference to the optimal choice of instrument, because it doesn't affect how much the firm actually abates. The choice of instrument doesn't affect how much the firm actually abates. It doesn't affect the allocation of resources. There's no inefficiency. Okay, I'm going to pause there. And back to it. So we're now back to the original situation, but now let's assume there's uncertainty about firm costs. And let's assume this is what the regulator thinks costs are, but actually firm costs of abatement are much higher, or significantly higher than the regulator thought. Then what's going to happen? If the regulator imposes a tax, how much is the firm going to abate? Much less. What would the optimal tax have been? It would have been up here, wouldn't it? We should be abating to here. So the tax is too low, the firm with these high costs is going to abate much too little, and what do we end up with? We end up with a huge deadweight loss. Okay. From getting the tax wrong. What if the regulator has a standard for abatement? And again, this is the true cost curve, but now the firm still has to achieve that abatement standard, doesn't it? But now there's too much abatement to what would have been optimal. And in this interval, the firm is sort of over-abating. Abatement costs exceed the benefits, and we have a deadweight loss here. So as you can see, the emissions standard, or tradable permits, for instance, in a slightly more complicated setup, releasing a fixed number of permits, gives you a much better outcome when there's uncertainty about firm abatement costs. In this case, the reason is that the damage curve, or the benefit curve from abatement, is extremely steep. So the regulator, it's pretty much common sense, with this very steep curve, you really want to achieve a certain amount of abatement. How do you achieve that when you're uncertain about firms' costs? You achieve it by telling them how much to abate, not by imposing a tax. If the benefit curve had been very flat, and you were uncertain about their costs, then this whole argument is turned on its head, and it's much better to impose a tax rather than imposing the amount they have to abate. But I'll leave that to work on in your own time. And that is question 1.2.